Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I am your co-host, Blake Ruffino. Alongside me is my counterpart, Joe DeLeone. Good evening, sir. How are we doing?
Good. It's the week of reckoning, Blake. It is the week of
Separation Saturday.
Ohio State, Notre Dame. I know, look, there's a really big slate, but today we're talking about Ohio State, Notre Dame, and it's going to get heated. Of course it's going to get heated. I'm just excited for this weekend because finally Notre Dame has an opportunity at home to prove themselves that they deserve to be in that top 5 conversation. And when they beat Ohio State, Blake, they will be in that conversation. There's
Yeah,
no
sure.
more talking.
They would be if they were to beat Ohio State.
Not if. When?
If they beat Ohio State, then they'll be in the conversation. I don't think that they will.
We're going to get into that. We're going to get into all that.
Here's another thing, too, Joe. Ole Miss traveling to Tuscaloosa.
I feel like that game is a little bit is going to be overhyped. I think that we're going to step into that game thinking,
it ain't. If Lane Kiffin and the Rebels go into Tuscaloosa and T-Town and kick that ass, we ain't going to be overhyping nothing. It'll be the first time since 2007 that Nick Saban has 2 losses in September.
Well, so that's the thing. That stat, yes, absolutely is. There's a lot on the line. But if we look at these two teams and remove all that, this Alabama team has been garbage. It's been garbage over the past couple of weeks. And I think that we're going to really get to see
they would take hold of the SEC West.
Yeah.
I mean, they take hold of it. I mean, when's the first time that Ole Miss to be the number 1 team in the SEC West?
Was it the last time Ole Miss beat Alabama when Hugh Freeze was there?
That would be
look at that memory.
Yep. But a big slate for this week. We'll talk a lot of Notre Dame, Ohio State, though, here today. We'll reveal our top 10.
Yep.
Both of us do not have Alabama in our top 10 because of the obvious reasons. I'm sure we'll touch on that as well. And then Overreaction Monday, but a massive slate this week. We got a lot that we have to discuss. I'm sure you're upset about me not having Washington in my top 8. I just
Ridiculous.
don't think. Okay, well.
It's disrespectful. I don't want to get it. Who's USC played that you put them where you have them? Who's Ohio State?
I know what I'm going to get with USC. They beat them last year.
They beat them okay, but in 2023, I have seen more from. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. We've seen more from Washington than I've seen from USC. That's all I'm going to leave it at.
No, you can't take your bias out of it.
There's no bias. Why is there a bias?
By the way, how did you like that blind QB reaction I gave you?
Oh, the one that you texted me earlier?
Yeah.
It was a little annoying.
Comparing Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams, and you couldn't do it.
Yeah, because I never would have thought.
Remember when you talked that shizite about my quarterback, Jaden Daniels?
I never talked shit about Jaden Daniels.
Is he not in the Heisman conversation right now?
No, he's not.
Joe, he's 3rd in the country when it comes to passing yards. He's top 3 in every statistical category.
Okay. He's top 10 in the Heisman conversation. That's the most that I'm going to give to Jaden Daniels. He's been good. He's been really good this year. But the best opponent that they played.
I think you need to go to the hospital because Corona got in your brain.
The best opponent that he played.
You got Corona in the brain.
They lost in the best game that he played in.
And
best opponent that
last year USC lost to who?
Do you think it was
back-to-back times, and everybody wants to, Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams played like ass cheeks against Utah last year, and y'all still gave him the Heisman.
He got hurt against Utah the second time. The first time he played an unreal game. Caleb Williams,
he was
ass cheeks. Lost. They didn't lose because of him, though. They lost because of other issues. Do you think Jaden Daniels looked like a Heisman caliber quarterback against Florida State? I don't think so.
He looked like one Saturday.
Jaden
Daniels didn't give up 45 points.
I think Michael Penix. I think Caleb Williams. I think Audric Estime. I would put ahead of Jaden Daniels.
There's a bias.
That's not a bias. He's leading the country in rushing yards. He's the best running back statistically in college football right now.
All I know is, here's what I know. You better be glad Notre Dame played Navy week 1 and not Army. They might have gotten their cheeks clapped.
Uh-huh.
Did you see Army on Friday?
I did, and they're playing UTSA with a backup quarterback in. So it's like, how much do we read into that?
Go Army! Beat Navy!
You an Army fan? Is that what you're trying to?
No, I have no bias. They play LSU. That's the only reason why I'm saying. All right. We got a lot to get into. I'm sure we're going to have a lot of discussion about Joe's Notre Dame team when it comes to Ohio State. We'll touch on that and our top 10. Joe, before we get rolling, you want to address this Mel Tucker thing?
Yeah, let's hit on it. The news came out today that they are going to be letting him go with cause. And the statement released by the school, they did a really good job of positioning themselves that they don't want to make it seem like it's because of the ongoing investigation. It's rather just because of the action itself, whether there was consent involved. And I thought that it makes a lot of sense, for him it's an inappropriate relationship to establish with someone who's supposed to come in and provide educational benefits to a particular topic to your football program. And for him to do what he did to establish if it was consensual, that type of relationship, it's very inappropriate. And they've also been bad on the field. If they were winning, maybe they would have turned the other way and looked the other way.
They were winning.
Not last year when this happened, and they've looked pretty bad thus far at the start of the season. I really think, my thoughts on this, I really think that Sharon Moore, the offensive coordinator, offensive line coach from Michigan, they got to hire him. That's without a doubt the best candidate. He's in the state. He's familiar with the rivalry. I know that Mike Elko. I know Mike Elko is a good candidate, but I think Sharon Moore has been very underrated over the last
stability, bro. They need stability in the highest order. They need somebody that's been there before. They can't just roll out a guy that is just putting duct tape on something, man. They did that with Mel Tucker, and it backfired on him.
Yeah, that was a very strange hire in the first place because at Colorado, he was bad. I don't know. I feel like a lot of times when you do have firings like this, you try to go in the polar opposite of what your last hire was. And their last hire was
opposite of Mel Tucker be somebody who doesn't have phone sex.
Well, yes, but the polar opposite is, he was a head coach for a period of time, maybe going with a coordinator from an established program with a track record and a long-term, long history of success. That's why I think Sharon Moore makes a lot of sense.
We'll see. we'll
Someone
see.
said Bobby Petrino to Michigan State. Stop.
Hey, look, I know you're not going to like this, but they're probably going to beat Auburn this week. Okay. I think they beat Auburn this week.
Is that an accomplishment?
Well, they'll be, again, Joe, they'll be 3-1. What I think people continue to put down on this, I like Bill O'Brien. I think Bill O'Brien would make some sense.
Yeah.
And look, no, there is not one thing on planet Earth that makes Bill O'Brien look better than Alabama sucking. God, does he look great right now?
Well, Mac Jones and the Patriots haven't exactly been a sexy offensive team over the past couple of weeks. But I get your point.
Look, come on now. He's dialing things up. He's not a bad coach. Y'all hate him because he's got a butt chin.
Yeah, we've talked about the implicit.
Got a butt chin, so be careful.
We've already talked about
he's got a little dimple in his chin.
The implicit bias with Bill O'Brien is
manly men like my son Ben have dimples in their chin.
I got a little bit of one, I think. I don't know.
Okay, but his is cuter than yours. Yours looks like I
think Lance Leipold from Kansas, Midwestern background. He was at Buffalo. He was at Wisconsin Whitewater. I think that he's another one that talk about a guy who could step right in and do some damage. Lance Leipold could do some things.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. All right, let's get rolling. I don't want to talk about Mel Tucker. They fired him with cause. He's going to sue him, and he's probably going to win.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's get rolling. Everybody do us a favor by hitting the like and share to all of the social media groups, share to all of those social media pages. If you're listening to us on YouTube, like, subscribe, notification bell. Wherever you listen to podcasts, rate, review, and subscribe. And if you're watching us on Fubo TV, welcome. Talk about our good friends over at betonline.ag. We do our top 10. We break down Notre Dame and Ohio State. We do that next. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you to wager on all of your favorite sports, contests, events with the first-to-market odds and lines. Find reviews for all the news for each league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, college sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports information for live in-game betting, props, and futures. Head on over to BetOnline today and use your mobile device to join and make your first sports bet. Use our promo code BELIEVE50, that's BELIEVE50, BLEAV 50, to receive your 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's betonline.ag, betonline.ag. We're back. Oh. They're going to get exposed. I'm going to continue to say it every single week until they get exposed. They got exposed last week. We'll talk about this in the top 10.
Baylor, I think, this week.
Yeah, they're going to absolutely destroy Baylor.
Yeah.
Well, hell, who knows? Who knows? I mean,
I think Baylor's in a really bad spot right now. I think they're in a bad spot.
Let's have a serious conversation about Texas. You want to do our top 10? I'll start off with Texas. Okay. So here's our top 10. Joe, let's go with yours first.
Quickly reading through mine: Georgia, Michigan, Florida State, Washington at 4, Texas at number 5, USC 6, Penn State 7, Ohio State 8, Notre Dame 9, and then lastly, shocker, I threw LSU in there, maybe as a little bit of a peace offering to Blake, but that's my top 10.
Let me tell you why Texas doesn't deserve to be in the top 5. You ready?
Okay.
What happens if Alabama loses to Ole Miss this week and Alabama is 2-2? What if they are a 7-5, 8-4 team, barely by the skin of their teeth, a mediocre average team, and then they struggle with Rice, they struggle with Wyoming until the fourth quarter? Now, then what? God forbid they go out here and struggle again with Baylor. God forbid. I am going to continue to beat this over the head. That team is not as good as everybody's making them out to be. Everybody's poo-pooing on the SEC, rightfully so to some extent. But the bottom line is, I do not, and I got them at 6, so I can't really completely overreact, but I just don't understand why some people have them in the top 3. Some people have them at 2. I saw the
some
AP
at 1.
Poll. Some people have them at 1. I looked at the AP poll yesterday when it came out, and they list all the voters and where they put teams and things like that. For the love of God, like you cannot say Alabama sucks, major roll tide is ass, and then come in here and say that Texas is good.
Look, I understand all that. And look, I even tweeted this out. I moved them back a spot because admittedly, I got a little bit too high on them after the Alabama win, just like everybody else did. But I am not faulting them for the performance that they had against Wyoming. We said this on the show. It is a perfect situation for them to get all hyped up, all high on themselves after the way that they played against Alabama, to show up the following week against a G5 opponent in the Mountain West and to look past them and think that you're the shit and completely ignore the upcoming matchup and play them close for 3 quarters. But you know what they did? They dicked around for a little too long. They played around with them a little bit too much for the first 3 quarters, and then they exploded the fourth quarter and they finished the game. They won, I think it was 31-10. If I can see a team that can flip a switch that quickly, I'm still going to show some confidence in them. I agree with you that the Alabama win is slowly losing its shine. And if Alabama loses to Ole Miss, I'm not going to move Texas back, but that win loses credibility. Yes, it absolutely loses credibility. But I am a big eye test person. I am very big on the how you show up in certain situations and how you play. The way that they played that game and stepped up to the occasion and finished that game, I think, is proof that they're going to win the Big 12. And I think an undefeated Big 12 winner this year deserves to be a top 4 team. And I really think that again, if they show up, they play like that against Oklahoma, they win by 2 scores, they are going to be deserving to be a top 3, top 4 team. They just have to, they can't mess
Well,
around like they did against Wyoming.
To say they're going to beat Oklahoma by 2 scores.
I think that
Joe,
they can beat them by 10 points.
Joe, they beat Alabama by 2 scores, and Alabama can't score an offensive touchdown until late in the fourth quarter against USF.
But on the road at Alabama, though, that was a win that they had on the road at Alabama. We talked about even if Alabama's bad, that is a hard path.
Team that's going on the road and playing a bad team. How does nobody else get their rewards for going on the road and beating teams, okay, in hostile environments, but it's just because it's Alabama. If they're 7-5 at the end of the year, that win is ass.
Because playing on the road at Alabama is in a completely different category than going on the road and playing any other team in the country. They're one of the few teams that has, 21 straight games that they won at home or something along those lines that Alabama had. It's still, I know that it's a down year for them, but it's still Nick Saban. It's still Bryant-Denny Stadium. It's still Tuscaloosa. That is a hard-ass place to win in. It is so difficult.
In 2 weeks, if LSU goes to Ole Miss and beats them, you better catapult them over Texas.
I'm gonna. I gladly will, but we don't have that right now. They have as much as it sucks to say, they have the best win. If you want to show your top 10 so we can.
I don't believe that they have the best win.
Who has the best win right now? I don't think anyone else.
Colorado's got the best win.
TCU's not even ranked anymore.
Doesn't matter. Should Bama be ranked right now? Here's the truth. Should Bama be ranked right now?
Until they have 2 losses, yes, they should be.
If you take the A off the side of the helmet or the numbers off the side of the helmet and a team does like what they did against South Florida, you wouldn't have ranked them. You wouldn't have. If it was anybody but Nick Saban in Alabama, you wouldn't have rated them.
I am giving them
the best win. You can say Florida State's got the best win.
That's actually okay. I completely forgot about that. I will give you that one. Florida State does it, and that's why Florida State's ranked as high as 3 right now for me. But as much as I am very down on Alabama, and I pulled them out of my top 10, Blake, I think that we do have to give them just a little bit of time to see if they can regain some footing, because it's like we said that the floor fell out on Florida, and look what they just did against Tennessee. Who says that they can't do something similar? I think that Alabama's doomed, but at the same time, we're not going to rip them out of the top 25 because they had 2 rough weeks. Teams can recover, and if there's a coach that's going to get his team to recover, it's going to be Nick Saban. Or it could be Nick Saban.
I don't disagree with that. All right, here's my top 10. Georgia, Michigan at 1 and 2. At number 3, Florida State. 4, USC. Number 5, Ohio State. Number 6, Texas. Number 7, Penn State. Number 8, LSU. Number 9, Washington. And number 10, Notre Dame. Go ahead and fight for your Washington Huskies. Go ahead.
Okay, Washington, I know, has not played a super competitive slate, but Boise State is one of the better G5 programs. And Michigan State, albeit with what they're dealing with right now, is still a P5 program. That is a Power 5 Big Ten program with a decent roster.
So is Vanderbilt.
Vanderbilt lost to UNLV.
Michigan State got their head coach fired because of sexual assault allegations.
Vanderbilt lost to UNLV. Why are we comparing them to Vanderbilt? Michigan State's better than Vanderbilt. They square up right now. Michigan State's beating Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt lost to UNLV. I don't need to repeat that. But my whole point is Washington on a week-to-week basis has been one of the only teams in my eyes that has looked dominant against every opponent that they've played. Georgia stumbled a little bit. Florida State with tough travel situation struggled a little bit. Michigan looked a little rocky, but Washington has come out. I mean, even Texas has looked rocky in some of their games, and they're being ranked really highly. Washington has just beat the crap out of everybody that they've played. To not put them ahead of Washington or ahead of USC and Ohio State, I think is unfair to do. It's wrong.
Washington has no business in the top 8.
Why? Elaborate.
Okay, you throw the ball around all over the place. You're a great offensive team. You have, number one, I don't think that they played a team worth a damn with an offensive pulse.
Boise State, Taylor Green is a very good quarterback.
Joe,
he's one of the best G5 quarterbacks in the country.
I don't give a flying shit if it's the New York Jets. If the New York Jets offense with Zach Wilson would have lined up out there, if you don't have an offensive pulse, you're talking, Joe, can that defense withstand teams in that conference?
Yes. Yes. They have blanked every team that they've played.
They haven't blanked teams, Joe. They start off sluggish, and you know that. They go fast. They have started off sluggish, and you know, Joe, what do you mean they didn't start off sluggish? They were up by 10 midway through the second quarter. They go into halftime up 13 on Boise State.
That was the one game that they started a little slow, and then they exploded in the second half because they could score on any given play.
I think it's crazy that I was the one all offseason being a Michael Penix Jr. homer, which I still am, and I do think that they should be in the top 10. I am a Michael Penix Jr. apologist, okay? But to say that a team that does not have a ranked win since when? When was the last time they beat anybody? A lot of these teams in these polls, what we do is because of what they've done in the past. The only reason that you have Notre Dame up there is because it's Notre Dame and because they have 4 wins.
No, I literally just said I'm a big advocate for the eye test. I'm not going off of, and we're not going, and we shouldn't be going off of who they are. I'm going off of how they've looked on a week. These teams have looked on a week-to-week basis. And you know what? Notre Dame, as I just talked about Washington, has been another one of those teams that has not stumbled against any of their opponents. Like a weak slate. And they looked really good against NC State in a torrential downpour with a weather delay. Notre Dame beat NC State, who is Ohio State beaten, who is Penn State beaten, who has USC beaten. Like the same argument. There's only one team, as we said earlier.
But to overreact to somebody saying that team has no business being there, you'll find out this weekend if Ohio State and Notre Dame, what team should be up there.
Yeah, it's going to be Notre Dame.
Out. But I, as much as I like Michael Penix Jr., I don't think that they're going to get out of the Pac-12. I still think that they have chances to lose to Oregon and a chance to lose to a USC.
I don't think that's going to happen. I think
just because you don't think it's going to happen doesn't mean that they deserve to be that high in your rankings, Joe.
Yes, it does. I'm saying that they're good enough to be a top 4 team in the country because I think that they're going to win.
Year that Hawaii went undefeated and they threw the ball all over the place.
They aren't Hawaii.
You would have put Hawaii in the top 4.
Hawaii's not in the Pac-12. Hawaii doesn't have a Heisman Trophy.
They haven't played a Pac-12 team yet.
Hawaii doesn't have 2 first-round draft pick wide receivers. Hawaii doesn't have a first-round draft pick offensive lineman and defensive lineman and an elite offensive and defensive line unit. Washington is a well-rounded roster.
On a neutral field, every team that we have in our top 10 would be favorites over Washington.
That's just not true.
It is true.
Washington can beat USC right now. We have seen
they wouldn't be the favorite. Joe, saying that they can beat them and is one thing, but they're not favorites over anybody in that top 10.
I think
the only person that you could say that they might be favored in would be LSU because LSU has a loss.
All right, if Washington beats Oregon, are you going to concede and put them in the top 5?
No.
What? You just don't want to rank them that high because they're a Pac-12 team. That's what this is.
I already have 3 Pac-12 teams in there. Joe, are you 1,000% sure that if the ball is kicked off Penn State and Washington, or that Penn State can't run? Hold on. That Penn State can't run the ball down their throats.
Penn State doesn't have any goddamn receivers. It
doesn't matter. If you can hold on to the football and run it right up their asshole, it doesn't matter. Pause.
They, against Illinois, rushed for, let's pull up the number here. Katron Allen, 54 yards.
Go to team stats and give me the total rushing yards.
The team rushing yards. And some of these were produced by their backup quarterback in garbage time at the end of the game.
It doesn't matter. What did they rush for?
They rushed for 164 yards, and a bunch of that is garbage time, end of the game rushing yards.
You said that they have 2 first-round defensive tackles, correct? Washington does not. And they would hammer that.
Yes, they do. Braylon Trice is a first-round pick.
That's all night long.
Braylon Trice is a first-round pick. I look, Penn State's a good team, but if you effectively game plan for them, that's why I'm pulling back on them. They got receivers dropping balls. They've got receivers not showing me anything after the catch. I'm not afraid of Penn State because if you load the box and you say, okay, Nick Singleton and Katron Allen, beat us. Because I know that if Drew out,
you're loading the box to stop the run, that'd be Drew Aller.
I'm not worried about those receivers. Okay. You can leave them wide open because they're going to drop the goddamn ball. I watched the all 22 of that game, and I was not impressed by that offense.
You're not impressed by anybody in the Midwest. Not named Notre Dame.
I'm impressed by Michigan, even though they struggled a little bit against Bowling Green. But it's Bowling Green, and it's a warm-up game. Guys are allowed to play like crap. There's some people questioning the Michigan placement.
I will say this.
Okay.
I do love their offense. I love Michael Penix. I love their receivers. But I just don't know if defensively, if they got into a game where they're not able to score, Joe, there might be a defensive team out there that can shut them down.
You're saying for Washington there might be a defensive team.
Well, I think that for example, are you sure that they can beat Texas? Are you sure that they can beat Florida State? Are you sure that they can beat Michigan? Are you sure that they can beat Georgia? Because what you're saying is that they deserve to be in the top 4.
I'm saying that they can't. Okay, by placing them at 4, that's my way of saying if they played Georgia, Michigan, and Florida State, that they would lose. But if they played Texas, USC, and everybody behind them, they would win.
Teams. They're not. I'm sorry.
They're not. I'm not disagreeing with you. They're not, and they have to prove a little bit more that they belong in the conversation.
I don't know, Joe. I don't know if they're in the caliber of the Ohio. What happens? What happens? The winner of Ohio State and Michigan this week. There's no way you can put them in that caliber with them either.
I will move up whoever wins Notre Dame, Ohio State, likely ahead of Texas or Washington, depending on, how the winner plays. That is going to be very important for moving. But right now, my whole point here is I've seen more well-roundedness from Washington than I've seen from any of the teams behind them. I would like to talk about, though, the one team that we're agreeing on here, that LSU belongs in the top 10. I feel like a lot of people are not putting LSU in there. It's your team, so I'll kind of give you the first crack at talking about them here. But I'm shocked more people aren't in on them.
Well, it's because it's early in the season and they have a loss, and because of what happened in the fourth quarter, that people are kicking them out, right? It's fair. And look, if you don't have them in your top 10, Joe, we're in September. I don't really care if you do or don't. But I do think that you can make the argument as of right now today that they're the best team in the SEC. And I will just say this, if they're the best team in the SEC from here on out and they go on and win out there in their schedule, they go out and beat Georgia, who didn't look impressive this week, they're going to make the playoff. I still think they're better than Texas. I'm just going to be real. I think they're better than Ohio State right now. I think they're better than Penn State. I think they can get in a shootout right now with Washington because I do think that they can run the football on Washington.
I don't disagree with your outlook on LSU, and you kind of have to be a little conservative about where you place them. So that's why I put them at 10.
I don't mind that. If you wouldn't have put them in there, I told you last week, I don't mind if you don't put them in there. It doesn't bother me none.
Yeah, I just think that the reason for it is, talking about well-rounded teams, their performance against Florida State, I don't hold it against them because they were playing them really close, a couple mistakes, and the game got away from them. I still see a good, complete team when they show up, and I think that they got screwed in the sense that they have to show up week 1 and play maybe the hardest game on their schedule. I think that is the hardest game on their schedule. Florida State, without a doubt, is the hardest game on their schedule. To have to show up and do that without any, warm-up games. You don't get to play Grambling and figure out your issues and all that stuff. So their way of dismantling Mississippi State, kind of like the Michigan State victory for Washington, to just do it so defiantly, just so like we came here to kick your ass for all 4 quarters. That really impressed me. But you got to do that more often. You can't. I'm a little wary as somebody who has watched Brian Kelly coach team for as long as I did, his inability at times, not all the time, but at times to get his team ready for big games. Because sometimes, and I said this going into the Florida State game, they lay an egg. Like they need to win that Alabama game, and they need to win the rest of the Ole Miss game is going to be really important as well.
I remember in 2014 when Ohio State lost to Virginia Tech 35-21, and they were written off. The next couple of weeks, they beat Kent State 66-0, beat Cincinnati. They got in a double overtime with Penn State on the road. They beat number 8 Michigan State. Minnesota was ranked at the time. They blanked Wisconsin to get into the first overall playoff. Teams have lost bad games early and responded.
Yeah.
I remember the year, the documentary with Florida and Tim Tebow and the boys. They lost to an unranked Auburn earlier in the year. They lost to an unranked Ole Miss early in the year and was able to bounce back from that and really respond and did it in bad fashions too. Like they look bad there. So we've seen teams in the past, Alabama, lost to Ole Miss. They turn right around. They go and win a national title. We've seen teams lose games early. Hell, we saw Georgia lose to South Carolina with Will Muschamp and then get into the national championship game. We've seen these things happen. I just think that sometimes people need to calm down a little bit on it. I'm projecting there. Now that I'm just projecting. Now, if they lose, I think they're out for the rest of the year until they, start winning more games. We'll see. All right. Before we I think this is a good segue into this too, Joe. I think that you have Ohio State way too low.
We've seen I think you and I have looked at two completely different teams. I think that the Indiana game is a little concerning. I think that it's a little slow.
Can a quarterback just have a bad game and then their defense does a lot and they get out of there with a win?
Yes, that's completely fine. But I'm a little wary in why I'm high on Notre Dame in this game, which I assume that when you said segue, we're going to transition.
Yeah, let's talk a little Ohio State and Notre Dame, which, by the way, is the game of the week. Game day will be there. I think a lot of people will be there. Isn't like Big Noon Kickoff going to be there too?
Probably. They've just been copying
Colorado the whole time.
Well, that or where College Game Day goes, basically. But yes, they've been following Colorado, which is hilarious.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. So Notre Dame, Ohio State. I think that this game being at home for Notre Dame in a bounce back year for Marcus Freeman is so critical. This game has a ton of importance for Marcus Freeman, him being a former player. Kind of like what we talked about earlier with Notre Dame getting dealt a shorthand, or like we talked about earlier with LSU and Florida State. Notre Dame last year was dealt a shorthand where you're trying to figure out your quarterback situation. And the first game of the year, you have to go to Ohio State. That is a difficult task. And despite that, they played an amazing defensive game, and they kept that game close. They kept Marvin Harrison Jr. and Emeka Egbuka not in complete check, but in reasonable check, that they were able to limit the score. I think that this year, with a team that has been so much better offensively, that I trust Al Golden and Marcus Freeman to be prepared again to face off with that offense. There's no CJ Stroud. Kyle McCord has looked better over the past couple of weeks, but I am not putting my faith in him to get this victory over Sam Hartman. I look at both these teams and I see a lot of similarities. I see quality offensive lines. Notre Dame's is better. I see quality defensive lines. Ohio State's is better. I see decent secondaries, but Notre Dame has had the consistently better secondary. You can match up a lot of these different position groups, but where it is the most important, there is a massive talent and experience gap at the quarterback position for Notre Dame compared to Ohio State. And last year, that massive gap produced a win for Ohio State. This year, it's going to produce it for the Fighting Irish. Notre Dame's winning this game because of Sam Hartman, and they're going to win it because they're going to run all over their ass with Audric Estime. My man is hitting holes hard. He is exploding through every gap that is given to him, and he is running over defenders. Did you know he's averaging
That's what she said.
I knew you were going to say that. Did you know he's averaging, I think it's over 4 yards per carry after contact?
Against who? Against who?
It doesn't matter. My man's running over everybody. Nobody else is doing that in the country. He is an unreal talent for the offense that they're calling right now. Again, everything's lining up for Notre Dame to win this damn game.
And that's why they're going to lose. I disagree with you in some massive areas. The one that I don't disagree with you, I do think that you have the quarterback edge. I don't think that you can argue the fact that the quarterback edge as the current moment goes to Sam Hartman. I'm not going to sit here and fight it. I think your O-line's really good. I think Estime's a really good back. Let's not act like Ohio State doesn't have dudes. Their D-line, their front seven, they're pretty freaking good. I kind of come to the conclusion, Joe, that I said yesterday, and I'll continue to say this. I want to see if you really do have weapons on the outside. I don't think that you do. I really do. I really do think that there's a gap. I think it's you look slow on the outside. The Tyree kid is fast. Okay, whoopity frickety do. But he's not a polished enough receiver. What happens if Sam Hartman is like these guys are draped all over him? Then what?
You have plenty of options coming out of the backfield, and their tight ends are.
You can't beat Ohio State just throwing to the guys out of the backfield and running the football down their throat. If that's the case, then you're no better than Brian Kelly was at Notre Dame.
But here's the difference, though, is that Brian Kelly at Notre Dame, they have never had a quarterback like this.
Do you have weapons on the outside that are really worth a damn? Yes or no? Be truthful.
They have young weapons on the outside that are slowly gaining experience. I'd rather have experience.
What's his name?
Greathouse, and I don't know if he's a white. That's unimportant. I would rather have a lack of experience at wide receiver than I would at quarterback, because a good quarterback is going to find ways to get the ball to his playmakers. They haven't really needed to throw the ball yet. They haven't been tasked with it, which is why I think that there's a possibility for them.
Nobody locking down Marvin Harrison.
Okay, wait. I want to pull up what the stats of the Ohio State Notre Dame game were last year.
This dude, R1, says the Irish DBs will lock down Harrison and Nabuka. You're a damn fool.
They have been. I understand that there were a couple plays against Navy because they were loading the box and trying to defend. They were trying to defend the triple option. Did
NC State get themselves back into the football game? Yes or no? Was that not a one-score game? Yes or no?
It was for like a
hold on.
minute.
Can you please, for once, just say yes, sir, Mr. Blake? Yes or
no? No, because context is
in the
important.
third quarter, it was a one-score game, and you had a fatty quarterback, the lefty, and Armstrong or whatever his name was, beat y'all's ass up and down the field, and you couldn't stop him. If you think Ohio State's not going to go in there and score on your ass, you're a damn fool.
LSU Florida State was tied at halftime, but that ended up being a blowout. Like, what does it matter if it was close for a period of time?
NC State is not LSU or Notre.
Florida State. They pulled away. It was for a brief second because they made a mistake or two.
No, what happened is you had a guy with love handles out there and a left-handed quarterback making Ben Morrison his little boy.
Last year, the receiving total for Emeka Egbuka and Marvin Harrison Jr. in this game was 9 receptions for 90 yards for Egbuka and Marvin Harrison Jr.
Last year, Kansas State held Luther Burden for 1 catch and 7 yards. And what did Luther Burden do this week?
Last year, Marvin Harrison Jr. had 5 receptions for 56 yards. And that was before the emergence of Benjamin Morrison. Look, they already have it drawn up, man. They know how to slow them down. Keep them off the field. You run the football.
Brennan Armstrong went 22 of 47 for 206 yards and 2 TDs with 3 interceptions. Okay?
It's a terrible performance.
Yeah, he's not a good quarterback. They are not Ohio State. He is not better than McCord. And he's not better than McCord.
I wasn't saying that, but that's proof. Okay. They're not going to do that to Kyle McCord, but that's proof that they have a really good defense and a really good secondary, that they pick the ball off, they can create pressures, they can get after the quarterback.
Joe, you have an issue. Notre Dame has the issue on the outside. And if you think that you're going to be able to throw the ball all over them and do whatever you want offensively, it's wrong. That front seven is a very good challenge for this offensive line at Notre Dame. It's a really good challenge.
Did you know that front seven only has 5 sacks, I believe, this year in 3 games against weak opponents?
And
they're not getting home. Why am I worried about a front seven that's been talked about this whole offseason? JT Tuamoila, who I know I'm probably mispronouncing his name, go ahead and comment that I mispronounced it, has not been as productive as he has been chalked up to be. Give me Joe Alt in that matchup. Joe Alt and Blake Fisher can both block him, no problem.
No, Notre Dame, Florida State only had a sack. They blew him out.
Sure.
You're using, they only have 5 sacks on the year. And, Joe, I said that you don't have wide receivers on the outside that can win, and you say, that front seven's not good. What happens when those dudes on the outside, you stack the box and they go man-to-man on the outside and you can't get a pass off? Because let me tell you what Ohio State's about to do to your ass. You ready? Bookmark this hoe. They are going to stack the box on you. They're going to make Hartman throw. Beat me early. Okay? Do it. Because they think that they have the dudes on the outside that can beat you one-on-one. If you think that Ryan Day, by the way, who schematically tore Kirby's ass up a year ago, if you think that Marcus Freeman and those boys just are going to waltz out there and just say, hey, we're just going to beat them down. No, you are not. No, you're not. And you know deep down in your soul that you do not have the weapons on the outside to go against Ohio State. They're going to stack the box. They're going to play man-to-man on the outside, and they're going to force you to hit those dudes that are not going to be wide open. If they win, Sam Hartman's going to have to be damn near perfect. He is going to have to lead you to this win. Can he do that? Yes, he can do that. But just saying that, they look bad against this team and that team.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, you were over here stroking it last year about Missouri almost clipping Georgia. Who gives a shit what they looked like against Indiana? They're bringing in a new quarterback. I know that those DBs at Ohio State can lock down anybody.
No. Okay, but see, that's where the biggest difference is here, and I think that's where the misconception is. You mean to
tell me that you have dudes that can beat Ohio State on the outside? You got Rona of the brain.
I have evaluated and watched those Ohio State corners. Their film. I've broken down their film.
You also evaluated Cook. And Brady Cook kicked that Kansas ass last week.
I didn't break down Brady Cook's film. I didn't break down his film and actually watch his film. I have watched Ohio State's defensive backs in the offseason. They're fine. They recruit well at the position. But this is not, Denzel Ward. There's no Denzel Ward. There's no Marshawn Lattimore in this group. They're fine. Notre Dame has the edge.
Talk about Marshawn Lattimore when my Saints are currently playing, please.
Okay.
All right.
Look. Last year, they loaded the box, and Tyler Buckner shit his pants.
All I know is Elks in the chat, he always gives me a hard time. If your Buckeyes lose, we're blocking you for a week.
Wait, what?
if Elks' team loses this week after I defended the Ohio State faithful, Elks is getting blocked for a week.
Yeah, I love how actually it's kind of fitting though that being an LSU fan defending Ohio State, but
here's the truth. Okay, now I'll give you something that you can actually clip. Here's my opinion, okay? My opinion is I do believe what I said to be true, though. I do think that Ohio State, to be able to slow down Notre Dame to some extent, you're going to have to stack the box and slow Estimate down. I don't think you stop him. I think you can contain him, and you're just going to have to play man-to-man on the outside and make sure that you win those battles. That's the only thing that you can do, okay? Offensively, it might start off slow, Joe, but when it comes down to it in the end, yeah, I would trust a better quarterback in Sam Hartman. But here's another thing. I know that you'll say that the Clemson game last year was a big win for Marcus Freeman. I don't disagree that it was a big win. This is the biggest game that he's coached, this one. I know last year you're not really expecting him to beat Ohio State, right? He's a first-year head coach. Earlier in the year, it is what it is. this is the biggest game that he's ever coached in my personal opinion. Is he going to be a deer in the headlights? Does Ryan Day do some things offensively that maybe they haven't shown? Joe, I don't think, at least in my opinion, from what I've seen from Ohio State, I don't think that they've opened things up really.
I mean, they haven't had to. They haven't played anybody.
So the question is, what happens this week when they do open it up?
Well, same thing. I think the same thing though can go for Notre Dame here. Is that they haven't needed to open things up, and they've just relied on their run game. They've just said, we're going to run Jeremiah Love and Audric Estime and win these football games. And we're not going to really attack vertically because they know it's the same thing here for Ohio State, that they don't need to open things up. And Notre Dame, at all costs, even against NC State, they don't want to open things up because they don't want to show like, hey, we do have some guys on the outside. We do have some athletes. There are guys in that room that are waiting to pop off. I'm telling you right now. I just think that if there is going to be a year for them to do it, it is going to be the year that Ohio State has a new quarterback. It has to be. It has to be.
What if it isn't? Then what?
I mean, Notre Dame can still finish as a one-loss team and finish with a good record and, finish around the top 10.
Well, you definitely – so here's – 2
losses because I don't know. If you lose to Ohio State, you're not beating USC if you lose to Ohio State.
I gave you a layup and you completely whiffed on it. I think that this, if for your playoff chances, this is as much win of a game as you can have.
I agree.
Because, I mean, look, I don't have – where is that game at, the USC game? Is it at home or away?
It's at home.
So you got Ohio State and USC at home.
Yeah, you've Clemson on the road, but I'm not worried about that.
I wouldn't worry about them either. That's interesting, man. I mean, USC, they don't play in the cold.
No, they typically it's in October. They very rarely will schedule that game in November,
December,
because of that reason, because they're soft. But still, traveling to the Midwest for them has never really been it's never really gone well for them. In years
I'm just not I got to see. Look, man, here I'll do what you did to me week 1 with Florida State.
Okay.
I gotta see Marcus Freeman win a big one like this.
All right.
Like show me that the Marshall and the Stanford and all the other games that you couldn't perform in later in the year, show me that it was a fluke. Show me that you're a really good head coach. But I do think that a lot of people are putting down on Kyle McCord way too early. Like, Joe, it's going to be his 4th start, man. I mean, like, we're acting like this kid is ass. Like, Kyle McCord is not a bad quarterback.
I don't disagree with that, and I will admit that I have been a little quick to judge, and I think that he's starting to look better on a week-to-week basis. But
Joe, when they labeled him as a starter last week, he came out there rifling that hoe all over the place.
But here's the thing, though, for like your 4th ever start after – getting every week's been a progression for him. He's gotten better and better and better. But is he really at the level where a top 10 team on the road for him to step up and be the guy? Like, I don't know. Like, that's not even me questioning saying he can't do it. I just don't know. And my gut is always to say
I'm just going to be real with you. To be real with you, anytime you go damn near, Joe, he almost had as many touchdowns as he had incompletions last week. That's hard to do on air.
It's still Western Kentucky, though.
Joe, okay, Navy. Sam Hartman has 7,822 straight consecutive starts. At some point, people in this business have to say, maybe, just maybe, he can get better week to week as he continues to get starts in here.
That's fair, but while he's getting better, he runs into Notre Dame while he's still trying to figure things out. It might be a rude awakening. It could be.
Irish by 7.
You're saying Irish by 7?
Hell no. I'm going to say Ohio State by – I'm going to say Ohio State by 4.
I'm going to go with Notre Dame by 8. I'm going to give a really weird number for no reason.
Okay. How bad is it going to be if they can't pull this one off? How mad are you going to be?
I'm going to be pretty pissed. I'm not going to be as mad as I was after the Marshall game because it's like it's a ranked team. Just look, don't get your ass waxed. Just don't get your ass kicked. Just don't. If you're going to lose at the end of the game in a fashion where we can build momentum off of it. That's the only thing that I ask.
Here's another question before we transition to Overreaction Mondays. What is Ryan Day going to do? Ryan Day came out today and said that they have not opened things up for Kyle McCord yet. He said the first time that they started opening things up with him was last week, in the second quarter. That's when they finally opened it up for him. And I think he went 9 for 10 for 170 yards and a pair of scores. Mm-hmm. What happens, Joe, when they do open it up for him? Like, is Ben Morrison able to slow down Marvin Harrison all day long? Like, that's Joe, Ben Morrison's I mess with you about him a lot. He's a good player. Nobody in the country is going to slow him down for 4 quarters.
Well, that's why you got to keep him off the field, and that's basically what they did last year. That was the game plan on the road against them, where it was like, we got to really just drag this thing out. We got to keep them from getting scoring opportunities. If you can limit their drives to a finite number, look, there's a very strong chance that Ohio State scores on, 70% of their drives, 80% of their drives.
If they score on 80% of their drives, you're going to lose.
But if you keep them off the field and you play efficiently on offense and you score on your drives, I just think that it's a tough task to keep them completely out of the end zone. They're going to score, but if you keep them off the field and you play your style of ball, which is running the ball down somebody's throat, you're going to win the game. You can win that game. Just need a couple stops.
You know what else? I watched the Notre Dame NC State game again today because I knew when you had texted and said we're going to talk about this game. Notre Dame's had a bad issue at stopping crossing routes.
They have.
Joe, as crazy as this sounds, Kyle McCord could go out there and look like a damn, the next coming of Drew Brees in this hoe. Okay. Only thing that can you show me that you can stop crossing routes, because that was a staple of their offense a year ago. Tight end across the middle. And look, their tight end's really good.
Yeah, Stover's been productive.
Stover's been really good.
Cover him.
We'll see, man. I'll admit this. It is a heavyweight fight. It is a heavyweight fight. I don't think Notre Dame's going to get outclassed here, though. I really don't. I think even in a 3 to 4 point loss, you could say, damn, bro, like,
right.
I mean, like they still fought, one of the better teams in the country. So I wouldn't take that as a slight. I'm just going to lean a little bit of Ohio State on this one. All right, you want to get to Overreaction Mondays before we get out of here?
Yeah, let's do it.
My Overreaction Monday is pretty simple. It's actually very simple. Actually, how do I want to say this? Joe, have you been seeing some of these people questioning Kirby Smart in Georgia?
Yes.
Okay. So Tim Brando today did his top 10 and kept Georgia out of it. Did you know that they had a tight end / wide receiver score a rushing touchdown and he was in the backfield? Do you know that they have a white dude that's a walk-on running back scoring touchdowns for them against South Carolina?
His name is Cash. That's awesome.
It is awesome. Can we calm down a little bit on Georgia? Like, everybody's like, oh, they suck. What? Like, they go, I mean, can a team just battle back, face adversity, and go out there and win? You know what else is an overreaction, in my opinion? The hit on Travis Hunter.
I agree.
It's an you can say that it could be your opinion that you think it's a dirty hit. I really don't know if that's a dirty hit.
I think that what gets lost in there's a lot of new college football fans that are suddenly Coach Prime fans.
The casuals are out.
Yeah, and those that haven't watched college football or played college football or even played high school football don't really understand that rivalry games like that, there are plays the entire game where you're deliberately trying to injure your opponent. Like, I mean, even Notre Dame, Central Michigan, there were a bunch of plays where they caught them on film trying to twist Sam Hartman's knee, like very clearly. That stuff happens across college football, but because there's just such a massive scope on it, it was a dirty play. But the reaction to it, I think, is just like it's like it's not what you guys think. This is not how this thing works. It's that stuff happened. Like I've even been cheap shotted before in games. Like I had happen to me, and I got a personal foul, ironically, called on me for retaliating. But I was running down the field covering a punt. Somebody ran into me and I tripped over somebody's leg and I landed on the ground and somebody was still blocking me. Play was dead, but the guy who was blocking me like hit me late while I was on the ground and proceeded to keep hitting me. No call. Like that shit happens. And like I got upset. That stuff happens in games. It happens all the time.
He lacerated his liver.
That is pretty crazy. Yeah.
Like it's not as if that he had a concussion or some kind of upper body injury or like a broken. I mean, like he didn't even hit him in the midsection. Like he didn't.
Yeah, I wonder if it was sustained at a different point, or like what could even have caused that. It is, strange,
or his body got contorted in a wrong way. And making this about things that it's not is just, it's insane to me. What's your Overreaction Monday?
Yeah, mine to get mine in. You said Georgia, our reaction to them, and thinking that they can't recover. Look, they're going to be fine. This is the Missouri game from last year all over again. They notoriously fall asleep in the first third of the season. They do it all the time. And you know what I saw from that is that even when they're asleep and they don't care, they can still obviously they care, but even when they're asleep and they're, going through the motions, they can still, bust that ass. They can show up and get after an opponent if they need to and flip that switch. And I think the same goes for Florida State. I really think that there's this overreaction that Florida State stinks. It is so hard when you show up for a game that you're not mentally ready for and focused to go up against a mobile quarterback like Castellanos for Boston College. Like that is a nightmare situation when your team is no juice and that guy's just running all over you all day. Florida State's going to be fine. The same thing with Michigan. Michigan's going to be fine.
Georgia and Florida State are going to get teams' very best shot. They're going to get they're going to get every team's best shot, and Georgia's been immune to it. Florida State, not so much. And every team's going to get up to play them.
Yeah.
Spencer Rattler played out of his mind in the first half.
And his bad performance in the second half isn't his fault.
How bad would South Carolina be without him?
Oh, my God, dude. I don't even know if they register points.
They're not using their best weapon in Nick Harbor.
Yeah, I don't know what his snap counts have been.
0.
I kind of had a feeling that they weren't going to play him early. I don't know why.
But why not? Like, what's going on?
It's a good question. Cocktober's almost here, man. They're going to go on a run.
Good Lord. Oh, and by the way, I'm not overreacting to Tennessee either.
Oh, I am. I mean, I overreacted to him yesterday. I said bench him. Bench Joe Milton.
I'm not going to do that because, well, I don't think overreacting to Tennessee is not overreacting to Joe Milton. I said Tennessee. I didn't say Joe Milton.
True.
They're a quarterback away from this thing being changed. So, I mean, I'm just not going to – Joe, a team loses early in the year. Oh, okay. On the road. Okay. We're acting like this never happens. They went on the road to South Carolina and got their shit punched in.
They are one of the more recoverable teams, in my opinion. It's just a tough road game. Going to play in the swamp, you get caught in the chaos.
Oh, and by the way, a lot of people giving Kentucky a lot of love. Who have
Oh
they
my
played?
God. Yeah, no, the Kentucky getting votes is like, you're not watching the games. You're not watching the games.
Yeah, I don't know. All right, buddy. Good stuff.
Right.
We'll see everybody Wednesday. Good slate. Notre Dame's losing by 4.
Bad take.
We'll see. I mean, I've had a rough start of the year, so we'll see.
Go Irish.
If Ohio State wins, I'm wearing an Ohio State shirt on the show.
If Notre Dame wins, you have to say go Irish. on the show.
I will never say that.
I
See
say
you
go
Wednesday.
Tigers.
No, I forced you to do it. See you
You're
guys
caged
Wednesday.
up.
Peace.